Legoland are proud partners of the AskPiesNation podcast for another season of footy, and they have all your drink needs for when the siren calls. Pop into your local Legoland today or shop online to pick up all your favourite drinks. Lukey, great way to celebrate you coming back, I think, with a couple of drinks from Legoland.
Absolutely, Nico. Liquorland has all your needs, and especially when the pies are flying, the place to go.
Legoland, from the land you love. Please drink responsibly. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the AskPiesNation podcast, where the pies are hot and the drinks are cold. I'm Nicholas Sacco, your host for this week's episode 10 of Season 5, or episode 123, if you're counting from the beginning. We welcomed Sydney back to the MCG with a handy 29-point win, making it 4 wins on the trot and keeping us in the perfect place on top of the ladder. We discuss how we kept the Swans at arm's reach throughout the final term, get through another big edition of AskPiesNation with some checkers love, and speak to our next Guess the Crowd competition winner. In the studio, I start with Jack Dugan. Jack, always great to see you, mate.
Likewise, mate. Good to be here.
But the big special return, we talked about how important it was to get Pendles and Coxie back into the team. It just makes everything click. It's the final piece of the jigsaw puzzle. And for the first time on camera, Luke Humphries.
Oh, it's good to be back, boys. A bit nervous here today, but yeah, I've been missing it a lot. Just the weekly chat about Collingwood, and especially when we're playing as well as we are. It'll be fantastic to be back with you boys.
Well, we haven't heard from you in a while, Lukey. So
You have, but not officially.
Not right here. So how have things been? How's Pendles? That's the most important question.
Pendles is flying.
Pendles is good.
The dog, by the way.
That's what
and
we
the
meant.
player, he is absolutely flying. So, all's good. Just being real busy and but trying to keep up with a lot of the AskPiesNation stuff, and then getting to the footy every week. So, been very exciting, the Pies so far this year, as you boys would be well aware. So
yeah, absolutely. And a good week to have you back, considering, of course, we had your brother on last year. He was a big Sydney fan, and we've just come from that game. So
you broke my
sure
heart
he would have been
last
wrapped.
year, and then this week we got him back. I don't think he cared as much this week, but it was good to get him back for once. So
no, absolutely. Huge result for us, of course. The last quarter, always a bit of nerves. This time we were in front, so didn't have to rely on a big comeback. But nonetheless, a very important last term for us to get on the ball with a few early goals, and that was enough, really, in the end, to see us get over the top.
Yeah, it was, Nico. It was a very much up and down game right throughout the course of the fourth quarters. Thought we owned a lot of the first quarter, dipped a lot in the second quarter, and then I thought the third quarter was maybe probably even across both sides, and then we took ascendancy in the last quarter, as we so often have done this year. Interesting. I thought Fly McRae actually summed up the win quite well. We found another different way to secure the 4 points, and albeit this week it wasn't with the heart attack that we've endured over the past 3 or 4 weeks. So yeah, good. Hopefully something we can build on.
Lukey and I were saying off air, 17 points with about 5 or 6 minutes to go. And I know in previous years we would be very nervous and panicking, but it felt a lot more at ease this time, didn't it?
I have never been more calm at the footy than what I was yesterday.
Wow.
It was just, I felt like they got that bit of a run on in the second quarter and got really on top of us, but I always felt if we stuck with them close enough that we were never going to be out of this one. And we stuck fat, got the sort of the ascendancy late in the third quarter, and then heading into the fourth, just got it done early and sort of relaxed towards a victory. So I was pretty calm for most of the day.
Yeah, I'm glad we were able to deliver in the end. Let's get straight into it. The pie that caught your eye, as we always love to do to kick things off. Jack, the luxury of going first.
Yes,
where are you going?
It is a luxury. I've given it to Isaac Quainer this year as the pie that caught my this week.
This year.
The pie that caught my eye this week, Nico. A man who a bit ashamed admitting I'm on record in various chats with mates saying that I was probably looking for him to have a spell this week in the twos. I think it's been a funny old year for Q in that, it hasn't been woeful, but he hasn't been at his sort of flashy, brilliant best that we've come to expect from him. And certainly not for the first time, and certainly not for the last time. He's gone out and proved to me exactly why I'm sitting row E of the Shane Warne stand and not at the table of selection committee. So he came out in the second half, and I thought he was one of the most influential players on the ground. Obviously, with his intercept marking and his kicking, he was back to his damaging best. We often look to a player of Darcy Moore, and we've spoken about on the pod about how Darcy Moore seems to be the bloke that starts so many of our attacks, especially on the counter. And it looked to me as if Isaac took that role upon himself in the second half especially. And I thought, considering, he had a bit to do, especially in that second quarter, looking at his stats, he only had 2 touches in the first quarter and then 8 in the second. So that probably points to more of the fact that the ball was down there a lot more. I felt, again, looking from afar, I'm not within the 4 walls of the club, so, what would I know? But he looked like he was lacking confidence. And then to come out in the second half and, dominate the game like he did, I thought, it was amazing. And, looking for more, please, Isaac.
Very
Lukey.
good.
Very good, Jack. I went with Billy Frampton and sort of a collection of a few weeks as I haven't been here. But just love the way he's come into the side. He's had his role change pretty quickly from that key defender, and he's thrown into the ruck with Cameron and Cox originally going out. So I just think he's been fantastic. Really suits I think, the chaos style that we play in the middle of the ground. Won the hit-outs fairly comfortably on yesterday as well. So did a fantastic job. And I think it gives us the luxury of when Cameron comes back now, and hopefully we'll have a fit Cameron, a fit Cox and a fit Frampton at the same time. We've got the luxury of throwing Frampton back into defence as well, along with Murphy and Moore, but also to help chip out in the ruck. So I've just been stoked with the way he's come in this year. Wasn't sort of picked in many previous best 22 at the start of the year, but he's come in and you sort of can't see him not in this best 22 at the moment. So, Billy Frampton, the pie that caught my eye.
Yep,
and he kicked an incredible goal. And I don't know if you've seen his celebration on the bench.
Yeah, that was awesome.
You just love to see that stuff. He just loves to be out there and loving the fans. So, awesome for Bill.
He's now kicked 3 last quarter goals in a row, Billy
He's the
Frampton.
clutch,
Can you believe that?
clutch Frampton.
And he missed the simple one early, and we're all cursing ourselves, and he was able to deliver that. I don't even think he was meant to go, but we'll take what we can get.
Yep.
IQ was mine. He did steal it, Jack, but I've got backups. I've always got to prepare. The reason he's a backup, but I think for the 3rd week in a row, it's Darcy Moore. It is. It has to be, because he was the highest ranked Collingwood player on the ground. 9 spoils, 4 intercept marks, 7 rebound 50s, and it didn't matter which forward he was on, whether it was Buddy at times or even Hayden McLean, who took some pretty good grabs throughout the afternoon. He just simply delivered, another 10 1%ers. It is those little things that continue to get us over the line. I just thought his work in the back line was exceptional once again. Of course, we know what his leadership's like off the field now. We've seen that over the last month, but he, as I mentioned last week, he's the current All-Australian centre-half back, full-back, wherever you want to put him. He has to be there, because when teams start to panic against us and they start to go for those long bombs inside 50, I'm less worried than I had been in previous years, because I know that Darcy Moore is always in the right spot and he's standing up there and he's going to take that contested mark, that intercept mark, whatever you would like to call it. So he's walking taller with that captain badge next to his name 100%, because his ability to just read the play. There's times where you can see the play unfolding and you think he's way too far across from his man. What is he doing? But he's timing his runs to perfection. And his influence is just second to none right now. And I know I don't want to keep repeating the pie that caught my eye being Darcy Moore, but I can't help it when he's playing the way he is right now. It is career best form. It's why I picked him as a sneaky for the Copeland Trophy. I'm not sure if that's going to happen, but at the moment, he's playing exceptional footy. So can't complain.
Definitely, that's a good shout. I just want to quickly give Murph a shout as well. We had a bit of footy chat at the game yesterday about Murph All-Australian. Now, it's not out of this world to be claiming that he's an All-Australian contender at this stage of the year, would you say?
Certainly.
Without the Collingwood bias?
I mean, if you watched him every week like we do, I mean, it's certainly hard to dismiss his effort.
He doesn't do the flashy things, but he does the tough things. He's always there. And like you just spoke about more, he's just got a bit more of that grunt about him. And I know he gets himself into trouble with that, with a few of the concussions that he's had, but I just love the way he goes about it. And I feel so much safer when he's out there compared to when he's not.
He's probably been our second best defender this year.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's the best 6 in the AFL right now, but that doesn't mean he can't
make the squad.
No, absolutely not.
It's a great point, Nico, that you bring up about Darcy Moore's closing speed, and because I, yesterday especially, was screaming so many times, what are you doing? You're in no man's land. And then sure enough, he's able to get back to the contest somehow, lay a spoil, lay a hand in, and that's probably where the 10 1%ers come from, is his ability just to look like, set himself up for an attacking play and then still be able to close down and get back and do the dirty work. So, he's an unbelievable asset to us for sure.
It also helps with the team defence that we're able to slow the ball up the field, so it's not coming down as quick as it might have done in the past. So Moore actually has a bit more time to go off his man, stay off a bit, play a bit more risky, but also have the time to go back knowing that his teammates are going to help him out up the field.
Let's talk about that last quarter because can't believe there were people claiming that Melbourne who were the best last quarter team in the comp. Did you see that?
I think
AFL.com.
I think statistically they are.
Well, that's great.
Because I did see during their game the stat come up, and I didn't really compare it with our one, but I think theirs statistically would be better than ours.
Ours looks more flashy.
But it's context complete. You got to think about the context of our last quarters compared to theirs. And if you're up by 30 and you go on to win by 70, that's a bit different to being down by 28 and winning by 14 or whatever we did against Essendon.
Exactly
So,
right. So, no,
yeah.
we'll take that. But no, last quarter again, because we're only up by 5 points at three-quarter time. We hadn't been playing the best football again. Story of our year, really. But for us to have been able to put through some really important majors, I think, in the first parts of that last quarter, and then it allowed us to play the way we wanted to and put Sydney under pressure quite a bit. And look, there were moments for them. I know Papley went nuts for a little bit when they got it.
It's the hardest he ran all game, Nico.
Within 3 goals.
actually, it was at the start when he was trying to whack Nick from
that's true.
behind.
We'll get to that. But what was it about that last quarter? Because for me, the key factor to us holding our nerve was the tackling and the pressure. Now, I've got to be honest here. I was calling for Jamie Elliott to be subbed at halftime. I thought he looked ordinary, he looked sluggish, and he just wasn't at the pace that I felt he needed to be in the context of the game. But his tackling in the last quarter I thought was pretty impressive. He laid a couple of huge ones. I think he had 2 or 3 in the last term alone. Jack Crisp was another one that put some really strong tackles in that I felt really helped turn the game in our favour. That pressure, I know that we talk about how important it is for our structure, but it was really evident, I think, yesterday in that last term, just how important it was for us getting that. When we had 22 tackles inside 50, it's nuts. Our average is 11. So for us to have doubled that in the space of a game that we knew was already going to be one that was full of high intensity coming into it, was just quite brilliant for me and a superb way to show that we are up for the contest no matter what the margin is and no matter what stage of the game it is.
We speak about holding your nerve, Nico. I thought it was just a simple fact of that we held our nerve, kept the pressure up, kept it our game plan, and Sydney just couldn't capitalise on their chances, especially, I mean, I'm reminded of Aaron Phillips, I think his name is, had two set shots in the third term, fairly easy ones
The
that you'd
second one was
expect
an
him
absolute
to
gimme.
Yeah.
I don't know how he missed it.
expect him to hit, and he didn't. And we, on the opposite end of that, we're able to take the most of our opportunities, albeit some funky ones, especially with the Myercheck and DeGoey. Myercheck from DeGoey kick goal and the Billy Frampton goal in the last quarter. They were sort of strange ways to take your chances, but we did take our chances, and it's probably just speaks to our last quarters, which we've just been babbling on about for the past 6 weeks. You know, we've just been able to stand up when the big moments come.
What makes us such a good last quarter team?
Well, I was just going to say, speaking of taking your chances, Jack Inovan, I think, deserves a little bit of a shout out. He's dropped originally, and then he comes. We kind of all knew that he was going to be the sub, but he takes it really well. I seen footage of him sitting on the bench with his big jacket on. I thought that was really cool. But he comes on straight on, marks straight away. I think that set up a goal straight away. So he's in the game straight away, and then he gets the goal in the last quarter as well. On top of that, he cops the high tackle where everyone goes ballistic and he doesn't get the free, but he's able to move on from that and then kick the goal after that. So I just thought he took his chances when he came on, and it's almost like he's good enough to be in the 22, but he's almost a really good option as a sub because he just brings that bit of electricity on when he runs onto the ground, and the whole crowd went up as soon as we saw Jack run on. So I don't know, it's just a bit of an interesting one. That
3 score involvements, 3 inside 50s, and a goal all in the last quarter.
Almost the difference, isn't it?
So you're right. I can understand that impact sub coming into it, and I think the call was made at the right time by Fly because Bobby Hill wasn't having that influence. He couldn't really get himself into the game. Rather than lingering on that for another quarter just to see if he can come in, McRae was pretty ruthless, but again, in the right way, he was able to bring Ginnivan on, and you could just see the impact he had. But you're right about the free kick that he didn't get. In previous games, that would have dropped his confidence a bit. He wouldn't have gotten to the right areas at different stages, but kept trusting his own football and knew what was going to come.
And then Papley goes and does the same thing and gets a free. See, I'm happy for that not to be a free.
Yep.
I reckon that's great. Umpiring not to pay the free, but you got to pay it the same
Both
for
ends.
everyone because you see it not only in our games but other games where that's getting paid still for other players, but not for Ginnivan. So.
The sub rule, Nico, it's almost tailor-made for a small forward, isn't it? Because, everyone sort of looks at Bobby Hill. He's had a really quiet game, the most quiet game he's had in the black and white. And he goes off and we bring on another small forward and everyone goes, well, why couldn't Bobby Hill do that? McRae spoke to it. Again, I don't want to be just regurgitating what Fly McRae said in his presser, but it's such a hard position to play, the small forward role, to inject yourself in the game, to have high numbers. And it's one of those roles where you're either having high numbers, kicking goals, or you can't get near it. And for whatever reason, Bobby Hill just couldn't get near it yesterday, and we were able to bring on Jack Ginnivan fresh legs in a game that was already halfway done, and he was able to impact. So, yeah, a few people I think have come for Bobby Hill in the past sort of 24 hours, and I don't think that's quite fair.
No,
but I almost think this sub rule is perfectly poised if you're a small forward, that's you can be able to come on and impact straight away.
big factor from our win last week was the same yesterday, and that was that clearance work, particularly important. I think winning the centre clearances 11-6, and I think a big helping in that was Mason Cox coming back. I mean, we knew it was always going to be important having that extra tall around the ground, and we still got to see Frampton have majority of the ruck work, but Cox, I think, was just so critical, took some really important marks, whether it was down the line, took one inside 50 that he probably should have converted, but that's okay. We still won, so didn't have to worry about that too much. But just goes to show, for us to have been producing the football we have in previous weeks without having anyone taller than Billy Frampton in the team, is just unreal to think about. So Mason Cox making a huge difference, allows the likes of, I think Tom Mitchell had another terrific game as well on Sunday, just with his clearance work. It's so noticeable, just the difference he brings into that team from previous years. And another hugely important and vital reason, I think, as to why we won the game, those clearances.
Yeah, just quickly, I'm looking at Bo McCreary, 2 disposals. What did we think? I know Bobby copped a bit of flack, but
Tackles?
didn't hear much about Bo. Couldn't see him get
What was his tackle
himself.
count?
He had 5.
5.
He still, runs all day. But, I felt the same about him. It was going to be either him or Bobby, I felt, for the sub. But, just not the same kind of criticism coming for Bo. I think he might have saved himself some grace with some really good performances lately, but I felt like he really struggled to get himself involved yesterday.
Yeah, Bo for mine's that sort of player that you can't. It's not that you can't. No one's allergic to being taken off as a sub. That's for sure. I mean, if you're not good enough, it's just the game dictates, you should be brought off. But Bo's that sort of player that we know how good he is, especially in those dying moments of close games with his pressure and how important it is. And he hasn't ever really been noted for his statistical work in terms of accumulating the ball or kicking goals. That's almost just bonuses of the other stuff we get from Bo, which is mainly his pressure. So I can understand it. Again, it's just that role that they play. They're either going to look $1 million every week or they're going to not be noted. And it happens right across the competition. It's not just a Collingwood small forward thing. It's an everywhere small forward thing. On Mason Cox, Nico, I couldn't agree more, mate. Him having back was just so huge for our structure. It should not be understated. Didn't have a massive day from a statistical point of view, but again, we've had over the past few weeks, the fact that we've still been able to produce the footy we have is amazing. With the likes of and this is, no disrespect to them, likes of Johnson and Kruger jumping into that ruck role, which is not a role that we want them to be playing ideally, but they have been, and sort of neutralising it at least. Frampton, he's been exceptional. We couldn't sing his praises high enough, but for Mason to come back into a role that's tailor-made for him, and then after doing little to no fitness work for so long due to his sort of strange injury that he's obtained, to come back in and slot into that role, I thought he was huge on yesterday on Sunday, and can't be overstated. Not just for the fact that he came in to play the ruck role, but he submitted that role perfectly. I mean, he's come on underdone, I thought. This week there was noted in...
It was a surprise that he come back so quick.
Yeah, I was nervous. I thought he might have been unfit. Hasn't done little to any physical work over the past sort of 4 weeks, and for him to come in off a week of training and be able to impact the game that he did, exceptional.
And for those wondering why we haven't spoken about my check yet, just wait for AskPiesNation because we've got a whole segment dedicated to him for his incredible efforts yesterday, so stick around for those ones. Want to bring up the Nick Dacos tag, of course, and all the attention that was brought towards him before a ball had even been bounced. Finished with 25 touches, 5 tackles, which was the second most on the ground, 27 pressure acts, which was the most on the ground, and he went at 72% as well with his disposal efficiency. 10 of those disposals came in the last quarter when it really mattered most and when we were trying to break away from the game, from Sydney, I should say. Dakes was there providing that run, laid some really important tackles as well. I mentioned the same with Crispy and Elliott. Did the tag work? Did it not work? Is it a blessing in disguise that we've got midfielders and opposition targeting Dacos? Because, as we've seen, it's just allowed others to flourish.
Well, Nick said that himself post-match in the interviews. We love when I get tagged because it opens up opportunities elsewhere. And you feel like it was definitely evident yesterday with Sydney. They were so worried about Nick at the start and putting so much attention to him that it just sort of took over their whole game that we're able to just work it out and go, we're expecting it's going to happen, so let's utilise it to our advantage. And Nick's just got to work through it probably initially for the first quarter, and then, as you said, as the game goes on, he goes in the last quarter, has 10 touches, so and gets himself involved in other ways, lays some tackles. So, yeah, I thought it was a really good game from Nick, and I think the expectation that every game of his needs to be this 35, 40 disposals, 3 goals needs to just tone down. Like a 25 disposal game from a second-year player is still exceptional.
Yeah, 100%.
So I did see a stat. He's had 25 plus against every team in the competition except for 2. I think it was the Dogs and North Melbourne.
Wow, he hasn't even played 40 games yet, and he's already
and they were both above 20. So when
Incredible.
we play them 2 again, that'll be when he gets hopefully the 25. But
unreal.
So exceptional from Nick.
What do you think, Jack?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with Lukey's sentiments there, Nico. The first crack boys did a really good analysis. I know David King is on that show, and yeah, they showed and highlighted the areas where Ryan Clark was way too worried about what Nick Dacos was doing and how much it opened up blokes like Tom Mitchell, Scott Pendlebury, who had a lot of ball yesterday, Taylor Adams and the like. So yeah, I initially saw that comment from him and thought it was a bit of a tongue-in-cheek thing, and oh whatever, we love it when I get tagged, bit of bravado, but it. We do clearly because it opens up so many more different avenues for us to hurt sides, and it's going to be an interesting one moving forward because we've seen 2 opposite ends of the spectrum really to start this year. We've seen us get away with it, no attention being put into him for like 6 or 7 weeks. We come into Sydney and all the attention's on him, and it hurts sides in different ways. So it's going to be interesting to watch future sides go about dealing with him, whether they throw a full-on tag, a part-time tag, or whatnot. But I think we've got to expect over the course of his career that he's going to get some sort of form of defensive attention.
Yeah, you would think so. Just a lazy 31 for Pendlebury, by the way. Just didn't even need to mention that for the first 15 minutes.
Yeah, when the screen popped up at the ground and it was all Swans winning the ball and then Pendlebury in there, I was like, God, he's just incredible, isn't he? He just never stops. So, and he finished with 31. So another day at the office for Pendles.
A couple of other things to note before we move on to our votes. I think just so much frustration that second quarter came from that disposal efficiency. Again, it was really doing my head in. Some of those inside 50 entries were pretty subpar, in my opinion, and it showed with the stats as well. I mean, we were below our 2023 averages in disposal efficiency and efficiency inside 50 throughout that whole match. And again, it was a little bit of a case where had Sydney had kicked a bit more straighter, particularly in that second quarter, could have been a very different story heading into the final term. So I don't know whether that is because of pressure or because it's weird because we do start games particularly either really well or really poor. There's no in between. And on this case, it was really well, but we just diverted back so quickly to that poor decision making, poor disposal efficiency, poor inside 50 entries. Is it opposition based? Is it pressure from somewhere else? Is it just us slowing things down a bit? I can't understand where it's from because obviously I don't expect us to play the fast frenetic style that we do for 4 quarters of a game, but it just really did annoy me at times to see that we just weren't hitting those targets well, and as a result, Sydney were, making it pay not too much on the scoreboard, but enough for us to be behind at stages of that second and third quarter.
I think Sydney really got the game on their terms for a bit there, and that's going to happen in every game. And the way we play, we're not going to have 4 quarters of dominance ever, I don't think. It's going to come in real bursts. But yesterday I felt like it was a mature performance across the 4 quarters. It might not have been the flashiest of wins, but it felt like one of our more 3 to 4 quarter performances where we had most of the control of the game, but it was just that second quarter where we were making mistakes and Sydney were getting on the end of it and started to take control of the game. It didn't last for too long as we got back the ascendancy in the second half, but that's where I saw the game. How do you see that, Jack?
Yeah, I agree with both of you. I think the last kick inside again for mine, it's so frustrating, Nico, as you've said. And you've just asked a question there whether you think it's opposition or us. I think the fact that we've spoken about it so much, especially over the past month or so, it definitely is an us issue. That's not to say that, last kick inside 50 comes with a lot of pressure because, that's a last line of defence before essentially some form of score is going to come. Another thing I thought we struggled with, especially in that second quarter, is I thought we struggled to get numbers to the drop of the ball. And I don't mean big blokes getting there to bring the ball down. I thought crummers. I thought Sydney were all over us, 4-1 at some stages. And, especially when we were trying to sort of go the long high kick out of our full back to try and get a mark or a stoppage up the wing just to alleviate a little bit of pressure. Blokes like Mason Cox, Billy Frampton, Ash Johnson, Myercheck, as always, were getting there to bring the ball down or getting there to take the mark, but there was no one around them to help mop up the mess if it was made. And Sydney were just able to, mop up that mess and send it straight back into our defensive 50. And that's a bit of a trend that we've seen over the past sort of few weeks, but one to watch for sure. We just need to get more numbers around the drop of the ball and more crummers.
That's a very good point. And something I did notice, particularly in that second quarter, it's what let Sydney get that run on a little bit is because not only did they have numbers at the drop of the ball, but when they started to move through the corridor, they seemed to be outnumbering us there as well. And just thinking, where the hell are our players at those points? I know it's our system. I know you got to back it, but yes, at times it can be very frustrating. Got to quickly touch on the booing. I know that Collingwood made a statement about it just before we came on air. Of course, there was some booing to Buddy Franklin, and that's where the apologies come from Darcy Moore, Craig Kelly, and Craig McRae. So all three of our main leaders in that space all making a comment on it. I don't want to spend too much time because I know it's a very contentious issue, but I just wanted to get your thoughts on the whole situation, and I guess, was the statement warranted?
You go for it.
I was going to go. You go first, Lukey. Look, Nico, this booing situation, it's such a complicated issue. We could literally spend hours talking about the intricacies of it, and as you said, we don't want to be doing that. I'm not a booer myself. Obviously, we know the clear boundaries with booing and what we can and can't. I mean, I just find this whole concept of talking about booing so strange. It's such a strange and complicated topic. So, look, all I will say is I don't think there was any particular real malice or hatred about the booing that was going on yesterday. It was just a part of our game, and it gets highlighted because it was towards one of the absolute stars of our game in Buddy Franklin, and maybe there's a little bit of the fact that we haven't had Buddy at the G for 10 years, and he's been giving us an absolute pasting up at the SCG over that decade. I think I can at least remember 7 bags he's kicked in that 10 years. So maybe the Pies fans just wanted to do their best to try and get under his
from the
skin
centre
or
square
something
against
like
us.
that. So look, I have nothing further to add, Lukey, about that. But
I agree with you. I just I think it's part of the theatre. I agree with. I don't like when individual players are getting booed the way that he was yesterday. I don't think it was as bad as what the media is sort of making it out to be. I don't know if you boys were there yesterday, but I think in general, I think it's part of the theatre of the game. But if players are thinking one way or the other about it, I'd prefer our supporters not to do it. But you're going to get that with every fan base. And of course, Collingwood, we've got such a large fan base, you can't control the majority of them, so especially when there's 60,000 probably there yesterday compared to the 10,000 Swans. So it is what it is. We just move on and hope that Buddy enjoys the rest of his season.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think a statement like that's just going to all of a sudden stop it.
I just think it fuels the fire and it causes more. I think if there's a bit more, let's just move on from this and not talk about it on radio all day the next day, and even us talking about it, then it just sort of goes away. But now it becomes a big issue next week for us, who we play, and then for Buddy, depending on who he's playing and if he cops anything.
I got to
next week,
say
so-
it was like I remember back round 2, and other teams have done it since. Not to just point the finger and say, oh, but they've done it as well, so it's not that bad. But the bullying of Jason Hall and Francis as well, particularly, it was the same sort of vibe. It was strange. It was it's just like you almost sat there going, well, why
Unnecessary,
why are we doing this? This is sort of a bit weird. But yeah, again, who knows? Who knows why? I'm not a bull myself, so I'm not going to try and make assumptions as to why other people are doing it. But yeah. Anyway,
I don't
we'll move on.
I don't mind. I guess the club making a stance on it, particularly knowing what has happened with our club in recent years gone by, especially this scenario with this team. So look, it does show a way forward in terms of us, getting on the front foot about it in that sense, and getting rid of any sort of theories about why it may have been the case. But get where both of you are coming from as well in that sense. So. Look, let's hope those weird ones don't happen again, and we can move on from that. Speaking of though, the crowd, incredible to see so many people there
biggest
at the G.
home and away crowd against an interstate side ever.
Yeah.
For Collingwood.
Unbelievable.
And I went there saying it's going to be 70k plus today.
Yep.
Nah. And we'll get to guess the crowd soon as well. But so many were in the 40s, 50s. Oh, wet weather. I said, no, 70k today for sure. We got Collingwood are going to turn up. Sydney fans travel and South Melbourne
100%,
fans. So unfortunately, their cheer squad, I don't know where they were, but they weren't there. But there was still a lot of Swan supporters there. I just don't know what happened to the cheer squad. So, huge crowd and exceptional for Collingwood.
Well, looking around, Nico, every section of the ground was pretty much full, except for, and I am an MCC member, so I shouldn't go too hard at them. but except for level 4 of the MCC, it was empty as you could have found a seat just about anywhere. So, yeah, come on, MCC members, you got to lift it up. We could have got 80, 85, I reckon, if they had have turned up instead of staying in their nice wood fire heated homes in Toorak probably or something like that.
Make some of these general admin members
just
MCC
quickly,
for the week.
In a couple of weeks, you can't get a ticket for Collingwood Carlton.
Pretty much done.
It's
saw your
out.
tweet today.
Yeah. So we've been just upgrading our tickets to reserve season. 2 weeks we'll do that. Couldn't get one. So I don't know if I'll have to
sneak your way in.
Yeah, get there somehow.
See how you go.
It's a home game for Carlton as well. So
anyway, let's get to the votes then. Now, of course, we always give the fans a bit more time. So if you haven't voted yet, quickly do so. But I have a clear idea of who it might be for the 3 votes this week between us lads. Start with you, Jack. 3, 2, 1.
A bit of a strange one for my 1 vote this week, but I've given it to Mason.
Explain.
I thought he was just for the reasons that we spoke about before. To come in, we needed him. We needed a big bloke. We needed a bloke who's been in the ruck and has experience in that scenario. But it shouldn't be sort of understated how good of a performance that is to come in the scenario that he's come in under with minimal training and to essentially seamlessly slot back into the side. I thought he was as impactful a player on the ground as any. 2, I've given it to Isaac Quainer for that second half performance. Just remarkable. One of the most influential players on the ground. Both, not only with his defensive efforts, but again with his ball use, exceptional. And 3, I don't think it needs any more explanation. I'll give it to Checkers, and it's like one of the more wholesome things you see at the footy when something like that happens. And really, really happy for Checkers to kick his bag of 5. Yeah. Lukey.
I got the 1 vote for Frampton. Spoke earlier about him, but I think he deserved a vote for yesterday's game. Worked hard all day, had a reward on the scoreboard, and just loving the way he's going about it. 2 votes, Scotty Pendlebury. He's definitely not getting as much love as he should be for the way he is playing this year. He's another one who could be sneaking into that All-Australian squad, potentially best 22, the way he's playing. Especially for a guy his age. And 3 votes, Brody Myercheck. Should be 5 votes. But I seen when the clock was going, when they put the Tissot clock up, how long's left? It was 4:40 or something. I reckon that 4 minutes 40 went forever. Because I kept thinking, Checkers is on 4 here, get it. He got that 4th one late, didn't he? There was not long left.
Well, it was the goal of the year. So.
And then I'm like, he's gonna fall short again. He's gonna fall short again. And we were out at one point, and then I think turned it over, and I'm like, the siren's gonna go. The siren's gonna go. And he literally, I checked when he kicked the 5th on how long was left, and it said 0, 0, 0, 0. So I'm like, he's just got in the nick of time, and I was so happy for him. And you could tell it was like a big monkey off the back for him.
100%. I'm giving 1 to Pendles. Not often a 31 disposal performance gets you 1 vote, but in this case, It does because, and that's not to say he wasn't efficient at all. I thought he was still superb. He still had 5 intercepts. He still had 14 pressure acts, 229 meters gained, and 5 clearances. So it was just another standard performance. But again, when we were struggling to win the ball at times, we knew that he was someone that could be relied upon to get things moving for us, and he did so to a T. IQ gets 2 votes. Frampton's going to be stiff here, by the way. I thought he was very close to getting a vote, but Isaac Quainer, a Collingwood high of 9 marks. He had 270 metres gained. He's playing so much taller now than I've seen. He didn't have that ability at times to go and leap for a contest, or maybe it was the confidence, I'm not sure, but did a roll on Papley, was able to take some good marks or bring the ball to ground as well, which I thought was very impressive. And of course, Checkers grabs the 3 votes for his performance. And we're going to speak all about Checkers on the other side with Ask Pies Nation. So be sure to stick around. We'll be right back. This halftime break is brought to you by Liquorland. Liquorland have all your drink needs for when the siren calls, like the 375ml Victoria bitter bottles available in packs of 6 or cartons of 24. Jack, bit of a VB fan?
Yeah, absolutely, Nico. The VB slogan is for a hard-earned thirst, and no doubt with some of the close games we Collingwood supporters have to endure, it is a hard-earned thirst. So make sure after those close ones, you get into Liquorland and get around some VB.
Pop into your local Liquorland today or shop online and click and collect in just 30 minutes. Liquorland, from the land you love. Please drink responsibly. Welcome back to the Pies Nation podcast, where the pies are hot and the drinks are cold. Let's get straight into our second segment duties with Ask Pies Nation. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you find us is where we'll be with Ask Pies Nation. So be sure to continue to get involved. And I'm happy to pass the baton over to Lukey now for Ask Pies Nation. It's his baby, so I'll let him take the charge. And we got a lot of love for Checkers in this one. But before we start, just a quick mention about his performance. And we touched on the celebrations we had of seeing him get 5 goals, but it was his work ethic that caused him to get to that margin, or get to the tally finally. Nothing we haven't seen before from Checkers, and his ability to just create goals out of nothing. And whether it was hitting contests hard or bringing the ball to ground or taking some important grabs inside 50 or down the line, just another excellent performance from him. He's now kicked 19 goals for us this year, which I think has just slid under the radar a little bit. He's been our leading goal kicker for the last few years for a reason, and he's continuing to deliver, and it was great to see him get on top and have a really big game yesterday.
Yeah, well, Nico, we spoke last week about getting reward for effort. You know, some of his efforts goes unnoticed with the amount his body gets battered down the line, 60, 70, 80 metres out from goal. Those just, the will to want you on yourself onto the ball and get hands to it and bring it to the ground. And I thought yesterday was just, again, a reward for effort. It's so nice to see him finally kick a bag of 5. Very, very wholesome, and some great images after the game with the big wide smile on his face.
He was just so happy. He knew it. It was just that big monkey off the back to finally get the 5, because he has spoken about it before, being stuck on the 4, and I don't know how many times he's kicked 4 now. It's been a few times.
11 or 12, I think it was.
It's like, come on. And he would have been like us yesterday, like, oh, there's only got to be like 2 minutes left. How am I going to get another one here? And just he does the double fist, and then he high fives the crowd. Love it. So
absolutely. Well, let's get to the fan answers for Ask Pies Nation about some love for Checkers and what the fans had to say about that.
Yeah, so I'll start with Gav Comtesi. Where to start? Workhorse. He reminds me of Lee Brown from back in the day. Battering ram that always offers a contest. He has ticker bigger than Farlaps and the running power of the 1974 Kenyan Marathon team. He's irreplaceable in the squad.
That's a unique way of describing Checkers, I think, but no, all very true.
GKL80, it's all about heart. Whilst not the most skillful man in the room, he knows how to get everything out of what skill he has at his disposal without taking on more than he is capable of.
Exhibit A, the goal of the year that he kicked yesterday, to be honest. Just for him to get a toe on that, because you didn't know whether he was shepherding the ball for his goal to go through or if he was going to try take a mark, but they just stuck that foot out, and it was the perfect time to do so.
It was incredible. Irvin _ can't believe this bloke was playing in defence before he was drafted. He's such a natural forward.
Yeah, we can't forget that when we drafted him from Port Melbourne, Nico, that he was a premiership backman for them at the Borough. So, yeah, Bucks, as he so often did, turned full backs into full forwards and full forwards into full backs. So, yeah, Or have I just repeated myself there? I don't know.
No, you got it right.
Well
You got
done,
it right.
Shout
Don't
out-
worry.
Shout out to Bucks.
Hot Pies Daz, Checkers is Collingwood.
Is Collingwood.
Is Collingwood. So that just
Sums
about
them up.
Sums it up. Sienna Demenzo. Checkers always puts his body on the line every week and constantly brings the ball to ground and creates goals when we need them most. Love him and what he brings to our club, amongst many others that allow him to do the things that he does.
And we were worried about if he was going to be able to take the mantle or have much of an influence with McStay coming in. Now, I know he's obviously been injured, but not only does the goal tally say, but, you know, those games earlier this year, there was some against St Kilda, I think even Brisbane at times, where he was, his goals were the ones that were getting us back into contests. And it wasn't by luck at all. It was just by hard work and determination, which we know he's just so full of. And it's great to see him getting the rewards on Sunday.
Conquer 2, he has that never say die attitude, gives his heart and soul week in, week out.
Absolutely does.
DV Vella, the guy is the same size as Pendlebury in height. Each week he gives it all. Just love him and what he brings.
Is he?
We should have done a fact check on that one, but I'll take that one.
I'm going to have a look. I'm curious because that would be fascinating to think.
While you're doing that, Nico, there was a great interview after the game that the club does with a few of the boys in the rooms afterwards, and my check was obviously involved in that. And you can actually see, I didn't notice it live, but he said once he got the ball, he just started running towards goal because he didn't want to take a set shot because he knew he'd be too nervous. So he starts running, and then in the heat of the moment, almost kicks the ball through the point post.
No, if you do watch the replay, it looks like he's about to run through the point post.
Yeah.
Kind of, I've nearly gone over. And it was just so funny because if he was a second earlier, or second later, sorry, the siren probably would have blown and he would have been like, oh, I should have had the shot. So it's funny that you say that.
1 centimetre taller, Brody Mychek. He's 1 centimetre tall. That's incredible.
So, Nick JC 104, the man is just so consistent, presenting, crashing packs and getting these cheeky goals when you don't expect it. Great reward for many years of hard work. Looking forward to seeing how he backs it up next week.
Let's hope he can.
Yeah, is the monkey off the back now? Do we set the bar as 8
6
goals on the go next week?
Keep building.
We'll kick 8. My key Alexa, we'll go with that one. You just can have so much confidence when the ball is in his hands or near his feet. He's consistently one of the first to step up to give us a change in momentum when we need it.
As proven a few times this year already.
Yes. Luke Nisbet, I'll finish with. The amount of hits he takes is in to set up others, epitome of a selfless teammate. And that is so true because he is destroyed, battered, rammed every game. He's always continually flying up for the pack marks. Might not always mark it, but he'll always bring it to ground, create a contest. And I can't imagine how sore he would be post-game.
Yeah,
we're
just talking off air, Lukey, about how sore we can all get up to some local footy. I can't imagine what it's like.
When you've had 3 touches as well, I'm
Jesus.
barely involved and I'm sore, so I can't imagine how Checkers is feeling. So we'll finish up with there.
Great to give him some love and some dedication, I think, for the work and, for those 5 goals. It absolutely helped us win the game. So
I just like this one. Charlie Spratt, he had a favourite moment was his left foot wobbler of a snap against West Coast in Perth a few years ago where we won by 1 point. Now, who went to that? You?
No,
Was COVID. That was the final.
Was that the final?
Yeah, that was the
elimination final.
Trying to
55
He has
out
kicked a few left foot wobblers in his time though, so I'm trying to think of which one. I'll go find out afterwards, but yeah, nice little moment that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we just know he's capable of those little quirky goals, but they're enough to get us up and about.
He does kick the most quirkiest of goals, doesn't he? He's always a little soccer here or the one we seen yesterday. So it's just the way he goes about it.
That's perfect. That sums him up quite well. And it's great to get the thoughts as well from our loyal fans on AskPiesNation, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, wherever you may find us. That's where you can get involved with Ask Pies Nation. Let's move on to our margin correct guesses. Did we have a couple for 29 points?
Yeah, so we've got Chris Lander, Pies by 29, and Luke Reynolds, 29 points. So
not bad.
Yeah, good tipping. I tipped us by 20. I was getting a bit worried. well, not worried. I was getting a bit excited near the end that I was going to nail it, but no.
To give yourself a shout out.
Yes, yes.
Is that
I get involved on the Guess the Crowd as well.
No,
Like, if I win, what happens there?
Well, that's what I would like. Now, when you weren't,
I think because I wasn't on the pod, I was like, well, I'll get involved here a bit. But now that I'm back on, I might have to steer away because I don't want to take someone else's.
well, see, it would have been funny because if you had have won and you weren't on, we can't get you on normally, but you get a call for Guess the Crowd. Now, speaking of Guess the Crowd, we should say we've got our caller ready to go. It's Oscar.
Yep.
Now, but he wasn't exactly the closest, was he? So, shout out to was it the first two that got it correct?
Well, no shout outs because they didn't take the call.
Fair enough.
Let me just quickly. We had Jack Empson. He, I think, was the closest, but then we had a bit of controversy. Dustin Belbin popped up apparently as right up there. And then Oscar, I already gave it to Oscar, and then I've had to backtrack a bit. So a bit of controversy throughout the day trying to work out who was the winner. But Oscar's the best replier in the world, so he gets to come on. And he was fairly close. I think it was about 100 or 200 off. So
We're getting closer to getting someone that's going to pick it right to the number.
there weren't many very close yesterday. It was all 40s, 50s, a few 60s. I was 71. Or no, I was 70. 211, I think, something like that.
Very close.
So I was a bit close.
Yeah, I usually just guess lots and lots now, Nico.
I
I like
like-
a chance to comment on that
One
on the
week,
post.
Jack, you're on for lots and lots. That was how you got here, so...
Yeah, I
That's
was
exactly
going to
right.
say nothing wrong with Oscar coming second either, fellas. Just quietly.
Were you were second?
Yeah, I
with-
was second. I don't think I
That
was
is
good 2
so-
or 300 off.
you know,
So.
it's-
Yeah, could happen to anyone. Well, let's get Oscar on the line and see what he's got to say after winning or coming third.
Hello, Oscar speaking.
G'day, Oscar. It's Nicholas from the Pies Nation podcast here, mate. How you going?
Yeah, very well, thank you. And yourself?
Yeah, good, thank you. Great to have you on. Congratulations for getting on the Guess the Crowd competition winning list this week. Great to have you on, mate. As we said from yesterday's game against the Swannies, getting up by 29 points. Were you there watching live, and how did you enjoy that last quarter? And I guess especially Mychek's brilliant 5-goal performance.
Yeah, right. So unfortunately, I wasn't at the game. I was working, but the venue that I work at did have the game televised. And fortunately, during the fourth quarter, that was when the business sort of was a bit slower, and I was able to watch the game.
Nice.
And it was very pleasant and appealing to see just how dominant our fourth quarter was. I thought, I was more hoping we'd be losing at the end of the third quarter and know that we'd come back and get the victory sort of thing. But it was a bit more unique to be leading at the end of the third quarter and see such a dominant quarter otherwise.
G'day, Oscar. It's Luke. I was having a bit of a chat with you throughout the day, and I appreciate your honesty. We just discussed that just before you come on. A bit of controversy with the winner, but at the end of the day, you are on the podcast now, so you are the winner. Just want to ask, how have you seen the boys across the year, and sort of what are probably a few areas we can look to improve on as the year goes on?
Yeah, thank you very much. I guess as it just seems that irrespective of the 22, at least at the moment, that you're putting into the team, it seems that everyone understands their role to a plumb. It just seems that irrespective of whatever lineup you're going with and the position that the players are in, they seem to be dominant in every area. The only thing that seems to be of concern for me would be sometimes our passage of play is a bit too quick or a bit too rapid, and our decision making ends up costing us going back the other way because we're pushing so far forward. But I think these players at least have been together for 2 years at minimum under Craig McRae's ruling, and I think as that extends into the years coming forward, that ball movement's going to become significantly cleaner and a lot less troublesome for us as we push forward.
What an excellent response, Nico. There must be something about not quite getting the Guess the Crowd right and then coming onto the pod and giving intelligent
Wonder where we
responses
get that
as
from.
a fellow runner-up, Guess the Crowd winner myself. Oscar, great to have you on, mate. Look, man, I've got a bit of an obscure question for you. A debate that rages amongst my household, and it's starting to rage over social media a bit. Jumpers, jerseys. At what age are they unacceptable to wear at the footy, or can you just wear them whenever you want? Your thoughts, please.
Yeah, it's a good question. I personally don't have concerns with the manner in which someone dresses, particularly when it comes to wearing a Guernsey or a jumper. I think as long as it's indicative of which club you're supporting, I think that's all the concern it should be. Like I wouldn't want someone coming in as a Pies fan wearing any other colours, because then under that circumstance, it's like, well, what are you wearing that jersey for? But otherwise, I think you can wear whatever coloration and jersey you want up until whatever age you make it to.
Well, I'm 24 and I still wear my Guernsey. I got a huge collection at home, so I've got to wear them somewhere. So I wear them to the game. So
it makes sense though.
I'm against. I'm against the. I think Jack's on the other side of the argument. Is that where you're sitting, Jack?
I'm on the fence. I'm extremely torn. I don't know. And I, like you, Lukey, have an extraordinary collection of jerseys at home. And every week I go through them and go, oh, should I, shouldn't I? Oh, I don't know. And then I just don't, because I'm, a coward. So I think from this day forth, I'm just going to, say stuff it. I'm going to go ahead and wear them. An excellent response from Oscar there, Nico.
We always ask the hard-hitting questions here on Guess the Crowd, that's for sure. Oscar, there is one question that we do always like to ask everyone that comes on, and it's about your obscure Collingwood moment that sticks in your mind. It might not necessarily be the biggest game or the greatest moment in our history, but is there a particular Collingwood game, player or moment from your time supporting the Pies that sticks out to you as one that you will always remember?
Yeah, I think there's be two sides to this question. In terms of games and moments, I think the qualifying final against Geelong last year was the greatest game of football that I've ever seen from two sides. It was just so tightly contested, and it was, to be fair, not Sydney. It was the two best teams in the competition going at it.
Yeah.
And it's just a brilliant game, and I was there with my partner Ella, the most minuscule Geelong fan you can possibly find, and she was absolutely giving it to me. Another one would be the Anzac Day game last year when Elliot kicked the goal after the siren. I was at work and I was serving a customer and watching it at the same time, and the customer looked at me and was like, "Are you okay?" And I was in tears, being like, "Oh, I just love the Pies." But other than the games, a fair reflection of mine that I like to commonly do is think of previous and past players that have played for us. Not necessarily ones that have stood out for having an immaculate career or anything, but players that have just been there along the journey that has built up to where we are now. So players like Chris Mayne or Daniel Wells, just players that I think back on and go, oh, I remember when they played for us and they had these small key moments that were like a bit of individual brilliance. That was something that I would say holds core to my heart as a Collingwood fan.
I always remember, you bring those two players up specifically. I don't think a lot of Pies fans were particularly keen when those two arrived at the same time with such big money, but they've both turned out. Of course, we didn't get to see the best of Wellesley, although I do remember being in Sydney watching him kick. Was it a goal or two in the opening quarter? Then he got injured again, unfortunately. But then, of course, Chris Mayne, we've all come to love after a slow start with his time at the Pies. So great to hear you've got the love for the lesser-known players
the role
club.
players.
The role players. That's what we
them.
like to call them. Absolutely. Oscar, it's been awesome getting you on the pod, mate. Thanks for taking the call, and hopefully we can enjoy many more wins together throughout the 2023 season.
No stress. I think I've been trying to get onto this for about 2 years now, so I finally made it. But yeah, I think when I speak for everyone as fans of this podcast, thank you very much for putting it all together. You really help us to understand Collingwood more as a football club than just the team, and we appreciate it all. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Oscar. We appreciate that, mate.
All right. Take care, fellas.
Cheers, mate. You too. Take care.
Very kind words there from Oscar to wrap up. Guess the Crowd, that could be you.
He's trying to sneak on to...
Ooh, mate, he might have my job. Very well.
The Jack Dugan path.
That was awesome.
That was
That's
absolutely.
Like the rookie selection, the way you come through. Yeah, the mid-season.
Mid-season draft. Well, look, that could be you joining us on Guess the Crowd, so be sure you get involved every match day when Lukey puts up the post on Instagram, Facebook and Twitter for Guess the Crowd. You guess closest and likely closest, as we've seen in this scenario, and you will be joining us on the Pies Nation podcast. Let's get to the VFL wrap. Now, no Marcus today to get through it, so I will take the reins, and there's probably a reason why he didn't come on, because unfortunately our VFL boys suffered a defeat to Williamstown away from home. We were no match for the Seagulls. We were trailing at every stage, and we're just unable to get on top of the Gulls that are pretty used to the wind down there. I don't know if you saw Port Gellibrand Oval. That wind was nuts, wasn't it?
I did see, Nico, a highlight that I think 7AFL put up on their Facebook of a Williamstown bloke having a set shot. And I reckon he started at far right goal post ×3. And it
almost
was
on
lucky.
the full.
Yeah, it was lucky to sneak in for a point on the opposite side.
Unfortunately going down by 24 points. But the big highlight had to be Finn McRae, who had 26 touches and 11 tackles, and unreal performance. We were just saying before we came back on that he's probably getting a game in the seniors at 2/3 of clubs in the AFL this year. Unfortunately, not able to break into that side at the moment. I mean, we know that Adams suffered a bit of a corky on Sunday. Potentially he sneaks in, but that's a real drastic scenario if Adams doesn't play, of course. But Finn McRae is certainly making his case to get back into this team. I know he's been emergencies a couple of times, but this could be the case where we do see Finn come back. What are your thoughts on his form so far in the VFL?
Yeah, well, I haven't seen much of the VFL, but going by stats and the way people who have been watching are speaking about him, it's incredibly. It's good to see. I just don't know how he puts himself into the AFL side, no matter how well he's playing in the twos, and it's unfortunate because we got so many good midfielders in there at the moment, and not many injuries happening around that way that he's just going to find it really tough to get in, and you don't want to see us lose a talent like him at the end of the year if he can't get a game.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Luke. But it wasn't that long ago, gents, that we were talking about having the same conversation around Darcy Cameron when we had a bloke like Brodie Grundy and Mason Cox ruling the ruck and the big stocks. And now look at us. I think we'd take most big ruckmen if you're playing local footy at a high standard. Come down to the Pies. So what I mean by that is that injuries do happen across a long course of a long AFL season. Hopefully not with our midfield going quite well. Touch wood, he doesn't come in because of injuries. But, what I would say to Finn McRae, if I had the chances, is just keep putting those performances up because, inevitably your time's going to come.
Yep. And hopefully it's with Collingwood. So
Yes, absolutely. A couple of other games that were highlighted. Trent Bianco with 21 touches, 6 marks and 5 tackles. Josh Carmichael also 21 touches, 1 goal, 3 to finish though for Carmichael, so couldn't quite translate it on the scoreboard. And then 2 goals for Reef McInnes, who was our only multiple goal kicker for the Pies. Surge's VFL report, and I've just lost it just in time. That's fantastic. So I'll quickly get that one up again from Surge. But as always, it's great to see him getting involved in all of these. He says, in swirling conditions and kicking against the breeze, the Pies went down. McRae, Bianco, Ryan and Murley, our best. Good to see Begg, Draper and Ryan back. That was Aiden Begg's first game back in the VFL. He finished with 22 hit-outs. Unfortunately, Tom Downey, his ruck opponent for Williamstown, had 64, so didn't quite get the job done there, but still plenty of time for him to bounce back. Kelly, Rusco and McRae also looking good. Hopefully we can continue to see the Pies improve from there. So that was Surge's VFL report, and I think McRae being, again, we just spoke about how important it was for him. It looked like it was a game that had a lot of difficult conditions, and it just wasn't quite our day in that department. So they were unable to, I should add also, unable to adapt to tricky conditions, overused the handball. They had 82 marks. We only had 50. So that pretty much says all you need to know in that stage. Next week, though, we take on the Giants at Vic Park at the AIA Centre on Sunday morning as we look to get ourselves back in that top 6 to 8 region. We're currently 9th at the moment. The Giants are 7th, so keep an eye out for that. For the VFLW girls, however, a big win over the ladder-leading Geelong. 3-point winners for them in the end, so a huge result from them. The Cats are still on top of the ladder, but Collingwood move into 3rd now, which is great, just behind Port Melbourne and Geelong. All on the same points, just percentage now sees us in 3rd spots, and we play North Melbourne next week, who are in 8th. So great signs all around for the VFLW girls. Before we wrap up, as we've been accustomed to doing in the last couple of weeks, we like to go with a bit of a weekend headline in the lead up to our game against the Giants. Fully expecting Toby Green to come back and make his recovery, as good players always like to do against us. But what are your thoughts, I guess, leading up into this GRB West game very briefly, and what is your weekend headline coming into this game?
Marcus did that to me last week, looking again, and threw
I'm not
me the
prepared
reins
for
and
this.
hoping there wasn't. I'm grossly unprepared as well. Jeepers, weekend headline. We really should do more preparation into this. Look into other stuff. Weekend headline. Oh, I'd love to see Jamie Elliott bag a 5 this week. Back in form. Has had a slow start to the year. So I'm going to say Billy back in form.
Great call, Lukey.
Well, I'm going to say Bobby's going to come back against the old mob. I won't go 5, maybe 3+, and have a few good possessions out in the ground. But I think he'll fire back. He'll earn his spot in the side still. And yeah, against the old side, he'll turn it on.
Gee, if they kick 8 between them, those two, we're going to be in for a
So,
very good afternoon.
Yeah.
I want to actually just quickly check the weather, as we always like to do.
We'll go Bobby Hill has a giant day.
Giant day. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so original, Lucky. Sunday, what is it? 18 and sunny. So potential.
It was actually beautiful yesterday, considering the weather that was supposed to be coming. And then we copped the sun for probably 3/4 of it. And then got a bit dark in the last quarter, but didn't have much rain, I don't think, throughout the day. So
Not at all.
Yeah.
I'm going for Dakes at 35 plus disposals.
Which
I
one?
think. Oh well, that's a very good point. Nick Dacos, of
Yeah.
course, is who I'm talking about. Josh wasn't too bad. I wouldn't mind if he grabs a 35 or 2, but no, I think Nick Dacos. I know there's been a lot of attention on him. We don't think the Giants will give that same attention. I think he's going to run loose and have another terrific game against GWS. So hopefully he can continue down that form coming into this week. So looking forward to seeing that. But is that all we got time for?
I just want to wrap up with this one that I've just seen. And I saw the same thing when I watched the KO Mini when I got home. Best thing no one's mentioned, when Clark kicked his goal early in the game, got stuck into Dacos, the whole Collingwood team flew the flag. When Dacos assisted Hoskin Elliott 2 minutes later, 6 pies surrounded Clark. Not a single Swan came to help him. Our team spirit is unheralded and unrivaled.
It is very good, isn't it?
Yeah, I thought that. When I didn't notice it at the ground, it was just fights everywhere, it felt like.
It was, yeah. It was
but then when I seen it, the highlights after, when I got home, I did notice that and thought, I just love this team at the moment. They just love each other. They'll back each other up no matter what. So I love that.
Just sums us up right now, doesn't it?
Yep.
And just one final thing from me, Nico. Don't think the Giants should be underestimated this week. They've been very competitive in a lot of their games in season 2023, and I know they're under that banner of a rebuilding side, but you know they could they're quite capable of causing an upset. I
Geez,
reckon.
we struggle against them sometimes,
do.
don't we?
Yeah.
I mean, I always think of that
The
2021 game.
The prelim gives me nightmares.
Was it round 4 or 5?
The coldest night
yep.
at the football I've ever had in my life, and it was the most miserable night
Disgusting
ever.
game. We lose that one.
There was another in Sydney where I wasn't able to watch for some reason, but I just remember checking the scores and they're up by like 60 points in the second quarter. I was like, what on earth?
We both went to that one, didn't
Yeah,
we?
we
Nico
did.
was over at quarter time.
That was a rough one.
I don't think I mentioned, but that message came through from Callum Hughes just on the Dacos thing. I better give him the shout out because I was taking the credit, I think, for that one.
Nah.
So.
Or watching as a 12-year-old Cameron kick about 6 or 7. We still won, but I could tell what was brewing from someone like him. So we'll see how we go. Hopefully we can get on the winners list against the Giants and make it 5 wins in a row. But that's all we've got time for on this week's episode of the Pies Nation podcast. Be sure to head over to YouTube, subscribe. Be sure to head to Spotify and Apple Podcasts to follow all the latest as well from a podcast point of view. Jack, great to have you on as always.
Always good to be here, Nico.
Lukey, welcome back.
Thanks
how have
for
you
having
found the cameras, mate? Are you all right?
Well, we'll wait and see the YouTube tomorrow, how I stand up to it. But no, it's been good to be back. I've missed it. You boys have been doing a fantastic job. And a special shout out for that Coxie episode. That was just incredible. It sucked not to be here, but it was so good to listen to it and watch it as a supporter of Collingwood, as a supporter of the podcast. I don't think you were here actually, Jack, but Nico and Marcus both did an excellent job. And I actually think with the two of you, it worked really well instead of having 3 or 4 because Cox, he loves a chat, doesn't he? So you just didn't get many words in.
No, that's okay.
But Cox,
it's about him.
Mace, shout out to Mace as well. He was awesome. So,
well, let's hope we can keep bringing you that type of content throughout the year. But until next week, I've been your host, Nicholas Sacco. You've been listening to the Pies Nation podcast, where the pies are hot and the drinks are cold. Thanks for listening to the Pies Nation podcast, and thanks to Liquorland, who are proud partners of the show. Liquorland have all your drink needs for when the siren calls. Liquorland, from the land you love. Please drink responsibly.